The Earnestly Speaking podcast is a show that is founded on free-flowing conversation and may at times venture into mature subjects. Listener discretion is advised.
Earnestly Speaking podcast coming to you on September 8th, 2022. It is the most wonderful time of the year. You know what it means. Well, the holidays are still a couple months away, which I do love the holidays, but it is the most wonderful time of year because it is football season officially. We're a week and some odd days in the college football. Tonight, as of recording, Thursday morning, actually, I'm alone in the house. Right, no one's home today. It's just great. My wife's in Disney for the day in Orlando with one of her friends and coworkers, and my boys are in school till 3:00 in the afternoon. So I literally have 6-7 hours myself this morning. But it's a wonderful day, obviously, for me. But it's also a wonderful time of year because football is back. Football is back tonight. We have the Rams. We have the Bills. Which I already said, if you listen to the Football's Awesome episode we did just dropped on Tuesday morning, that is my Super Bowl preview. That is what I believe will be this year's Super Bowl. I think the Rams should run away in the NFC. I think the Bills are, to me, the best team in football. I think they'll have a dominant year. I told, I said on the podcast or whatever it was, I'll be 14-3 this year at least, I believe. This is going to be a dominant year. But yeah. We are, football's back, favorite time of year, of course. I cannot wait to get going with that. Obviously, football's awesome. We're going with that already as it is. I also do my weekly appearances on Huddle Up Podcasts. You should always check out, of course, on any podcast catcher with, of course, myself, Big Jim, James Neese, of course, Kyle Nash, Matt Muleisen. I'm going to get that word. I'm going to get his name right one day, I swear to God. Muleisen. And so there's a lot going on here, man. But first off, let me just say this real quick. And thank you for folks who are continuing to believe in my vision, believe in Earnestly Speaking Media. We have crossed 100 subscribers on YouTube. Like I'm not someone who has really pushed YouTube and YouTube platform really. I've said that the YouTube platform for me for a long time has been mostly storage. For me, like storing up archives and storing material, and I'll once in a while throw out clips and stuff. But I never really pushed the YouTube page until recently. So now we're up to 101 subscribers on YouTube. I want to thank you guys who are continuing to follow the vision. Like I said, we're really gonna make an effort to throw more content on there, especially between this show. Obviously the projects we do here, between Unfiltered and sometimes we do a little one-off shows, wrestling retrospective on this feed, and the NBA stuff we do with Zach and Chris once in a while, and then of course my wrestling podcast that's on its own feed, Take the Wrestling Podcast, which we'll be recording tonight as well too. Looking forward to that show actually tonight. Honestly, a lot to talk about in AEW, which we'll talk about in the show today too as well. So again, thank you to everyone for subscribing. And please pass it on to people to subscribe. I really appreciate support. We want to get this to now 200 subscribers now. Like, look, this is a passion project. I love doing what I do. Obviously, it would be a great thing to do this medium and media and content creation as a way to to be my main gig. This pays the bills. We're not at that point yet, though, unfortunately. But in any case, I still love doing it anyway. It is therapy for me. It is something that, as I've said in the past, when you live a life, when you have a family, wife and kids and bills to pay and a job to go to and all those things that come with that, having something that you're passionate about it's actually necessary, honestly, because it keeps you sane. Because you don't want to get into that same, every day, repetition. And I'm sure some like that, which is fine. I'm not knocking you. But you need something. You need something that's going to keep you sane. And to me, the podcast and doing the medium and podcasting and writing too, also, especially. I'm actually back on Substack, writing again. I just wrote a big notepad on Monday for Labor Day. I'm dropping this afternoon when I got off this podcast. My official predictions which if you guys heard the podcast, you probably know already. But some people don't listen to the podcast. I mean, I heard all the predictions. I have it down written form as well too on the Substack. My NFL 2022 predictions officially. Over-unders and obviously my division winners, my wild cards, my who's going to the Super Bowl, who's winning MVP, et cetera, et cetera, et cetera, et cetera. So that's kind of what we're doing here. Like I said, with Substack especially, I want to try to write consistently as possible. I don't know how much I can do with my schedule because with the podcast too, especially, and not only that, you guys noticed too, we've been recording a lot last couple of weeks since coming back from my little hiatus, and a lot of that too. Also, it's awesome. You get motivated, and like I said, this time of year for me especially is where I get really, honestly, in terms of content. This is where the fall, is where probably the most content comes out of this microphone, because again, forget the fact that you have sports, football's back, college football's back, then you got the baseball playoffs are coming up soon, dependent time, and of course as a Met fan especially too, and they're involved, and they're in first place now in the NL East for now. You have that, and then before you know it, basketball's back in October, and you have all that, and then you have also in pop culture TV sweeps, and you have so much going on. This is where content for me, September through December, probably to January too, is where it's active. It's actually where I probably do my most content, in terms of volume. So it's kind of balance. It's a balancing act. You don't want to get burnt out too, but you also want to feel like you're involved. And I get all that. But this is a time of year where it's really, really go time if you're doing this kind of stuff. As I said, also, I discussed this on the Football's Awesome podcast episode we did on Tuesday. We initially had its own feed, and that we're still trying to do that, to be honest with you. But as I announced on the cold open of the Football's Awesome episode we just did 2 days ago, we have an issue with Spotify last couple of weeks getting the show up on Spotify. Now it got up on Apple Podcasts, a couple of platforms, but the problem was Spotify kept not approving the show on the platform. I don't know why. I've never had an issue with Spotify in the past. So it was mind-boggling to me why it would not get accepted on their platform. So I made a decision a couple days ago to just continue running the Football's Awesome episodes on this feed for the time being until we get that rectified. Some people say, well, what's the big deal? Spotify, no big deal. Just keep running it on its own feed. The problem is Spotify, I looking at the data, especially what I've been, with using and whatnot, looking at the data, I get a good chunk of my listenership on Spotify as well now too. Not just Apple anymore. It used to be the Apple iTunes / whatever feed, but a good chunk of my listenership on this show and all of my shows for that matter, Spotify gets a good chunk of that, and a lot of it too is because of the fact that it's also the most user friendly of all the platforms, especially. When I promote this show, for example, on Instagram, I mainly use the Spotify link because they make it easier to link it and whatnot. So that's why there's a good chunk of my numbers that come out of Spotify, and I don't want to leave them out to dry either. Too, for the people who don't have Apple and like Spotify. Spotify is now a player now in the podcast medium now. They've been for a couple of years now, and obviously now with Joe Rogan being there and the Ringer and et cetera, et cetera, et cetera. You can't just. It's not just about Apple Podcasts anymore. Spotify is involved now. Spotify is part of this whole echo chamber or ecosystem, when they call it. So I have to respect that. So for the time being, we're going to run all the Football's Awesome podcast episodes on this feed. We'll see if we'll keep it that way. We'll see if Spotify somehow finally approves me and that show on that platform. Maybe we'll put it back on there. But for now, we're running stuff here for the time being. Now, it might be easier for people to just run stuff here too, to be honest with you, because it's everything in one place. I just don't want to clutter the feed. That's why I made the Unfiltered podcast back on its own feed, because I do plan on doing Unfiltered. I like to make the Unfiltered podcast a daily thing where I just do like a quick 5-minute take for the day, whether it's on sports or pop culture, maybe, or politics. I like to do that, and I don't want to clutter this feed with that. I like to keep things somewhat spacious. Make that the short form podcast feed, and then this show will be all the long form stuff that we do here. That was the general idea of doing all this in the first place years ago. Obviously with my ADHD, of course, and sometimes I get in my own way. And I get that. I totally get that. But again, for the time being, Football's Awesome episodes will be on this feed. Dropping those every Tuesday night / Wednesday mornings. Due to schedules, I know Zach the Degenerate, for example, he can only record now at nighttime, so we do his segment later at night on Tuesdays. So once I'm done with that, then I can put it out to the masses and whatnot. So that'll be Tuesday night, Wednesday mornings, and whatnot. So that'll be the regular schedule going forward, at least for the next couple months. We'll see what happens there. All right, let's get some NFL talk. Football's back, like I said. A lot of quarterback talk, quarterback decisions being made, and things going on. With the Jets, obviously Zach Wilson got hurt in preseason. Joe Flacco is the starting quarterback for Week 1 officially. We're hearing now that because we initially heard that Zach Wilson could be back for Week 2. Then we heard that Week 1 is a possibility, and now we're hearing that Flacco is the Week 1 starter. More news on that too is the fact that Zach Wilson may not actually be back until as far as Week 4. So that, as a gambler, especially too, that's a big deal because I am not a Joe Flacco fan at all. So. I'm gonna record an unfiltered episode on the other feed later today with my best bets of the week. Bet your ass I'm betting Baltimore minus 7.5, if not more, with that when that comes up. So that's the situation there with the Jets there, especially. Mr. Trubisky has announced on the Football's Awesome podcast he is now officially the QB1. A little bit of controversy about that too, especially a lot of folks feel like Kenny Pickett, the guy they drafted in the first round, is ready to start for the Steelers, but Trubisky is the starter for the time being. I think the Steelers are a weird team, especially too because I think that because of the culture, because of the coach, because of what they are, who they've been for decades, they're going to always be in the mix. I mean, it's no surprise that Mike Tomlin has never been under 500 his entire career. This year could be a possibility, especially with the AFC being much better on paper, but on my over-unders, like as you saw a couple weeks ago on this podcast, I actually still took the over with the Steelers because I have so much faith in that culture. I guess the question is going to be now, when do you see Kenny Pickett becoming the starting quarterback for the Steelers? I could see is probably Week 4, Week 5. I think we speculated on one of these shows recently that probably the Jets game, I think it was Week 5, I believe. I can't exactly remember. It was in the early first quarter of the season. I mean, Trubisky, like I said, been to playoffs twice, with the Bears, and he's okay. He's not bad. He's a stopgap. Clearly, Pickett is the guy. I personally believe that if Kenny Pickett's ready to go, just throw his ass in there. That's my personal opinion. I mean, a lot of people say down, take your time, a little more old school, a little more traditional. Obviously, Mike Tomlin feels the same way too, but hey, it is what it is. Also, the big story, especially too, coming to the weekend, is Lamar Jackson and his contract situation. He has set a deadline now for Friday, for tomorrow, to come with a deal. Them in the Ravens. We got word Monday that the Ravens had allegedly had upped their offer to Lamar Jackson, but there's still some distance between them, both parties, about guaranteed money. Obviously, this is not a very easy situation for both parties here because Lamar Jackson's his play is very unorthodox in terms of being a quarterback, running quarterback, or most running quarterback, should I say. But what is clear is that his value to that franchise is huge. When he's there, they're a Super Bowl contending team. When he's not there, they're literally the worst team in that division. Just that simple. And you saw last year, 8-3. He was MVP front runner at that point. Number 1 seed in the AFC at that time, and then he gets hurt, and the Ravens lose every single game after that. But at the same time, his style of play makes it difficult because he runs a lot at a high volume, he's actually now at a higher risk of getting hurt. So that's where it gets very complicated when it comes to his contract situation, and especially the guarantee money and all that. Me personally, he deserves the money. Pay the guy and figure it out later. And that's my opinion because he's needed, and not just on the field, but he's also obviously a big time, necessity for the franchise in terms of selling jerseys and whatnot too. So you make money on Lamar being on your franchise. So Friday's deadline allegedly is for them to come to an agreement. I think it will happen. Personally, I think there's too much risk for Lamar to not play without a contract. And I think the Ravens know that, and I think he knows that too. But Lamar has the leverage. In my opinion, Lamar has most of the leverage here because, again, play the game, and his value to that team is that big. So we'll see. I think they'll come to agreement. It would not shock me It would not shock me if there's an agreement in place by the end of this day, honestly. It would not surprise me at all. I think the Ravens want to get behind them, and I think Lamar wants to be behind them, and I think, you go to week 1, but he's your quarterback for the next 5 to whatever, how many years going forward, and that's just it. So, anyway, I'm going to do this here now for the time being, but moving forward, this week and moving forward, my picks of the week, which I leave on Facebook, which I leave on social media, whatever, I want to record it too as well, but I also want to put it on the unfiltered feed going forward. I'll do it here on this segment as well too, but going forward, I'll put it on the unfiltered feed every Thursday most likely, because if the Thursday game is part of that, parlay I'm going to do, I'll throw it in as well too. So my week 1 picks right now, like I said, we did football's awesome. We did all the picks throughout the, me and Zach went through all the games and stuff and what we believe. This is different now. These are the 5 games I'm recommending people to bet, to gamble on. This is the 5 games I feel good about to bet on. So first game I have, like I said, Lamar Jackson and the Ravens. I have the Ravens covering 7.5 points in New York as the Jets. Again, Joe Flacco's your quarterback. There's no way in hell I'm picking Joe Flacco at all on the points at all. And I know it's week 1, but Baltimore is leaps and bounds better than the Jets. So I got Baltimore minus 7.5. Lock it in now as soon as you can. Then Monday Night Football, I have Russell Wilson returning to Seattle to crush the Denver Broncos. I'm surprised this number is as low as it is. Maybe because of the fact that it's week 1, but 6.5 points, Denver minus 6.5 points, minus 6.5 over the Seattle Seahawks. The Seahawks are going to be terrible this year. Okay, and they're going to regret trading Russell Wilson. This is a little tough one, but this is a gut pick here for me. I feel good about this pick, but we'll see. I have the Dolphins covering 3 points over the New England Patriots. The Pats never play well here at all down here in Miami, whether it's Brady is quarterback or not. And I think Miami on paper is better. I don't like what I'm hearing out of camp from the Patriots and about the fact that Mac Jones doesn't look good. The Dolphins did also sweep the Patriots last year, so I feel good. This is a gut pick. I probably should stay with this game, but I'm going to take the gut on the Dolphins winning this game and covering 3 points. It's only 3 points. Then I like the under on the Baker Bowl. The Baker Bowl, of course, is Baker Mayfield in Carolina against his old team at home, the Browns. The over-under is 41.5. I love the under this one. And then my pick of the week, my upset of the week, I'm going to go home here. I normally don't do this. I normally don't ever bet my favorite team just because of the emotional part of the whole thing. However, I am taking the New York Giants plus 5.5 points. In fact, I am taking the New York Giants to not only cover the spread here, the Giants will actually win this game over the Tennessee Titans. I already told you guys, I am not big on the Titans this year. I think of all the contenders last year, coming to this year, they take the biggest step back. It wouldn't surprise me if they go under 500. You go through the schedule, they have a couple tough games in there. You got the Packers and the Raiders and the Bills and Chiefs game there. You play the Colts twice. It was surprised that the Jaguars beat them once, and even the Texans, because they did last year, beat them once. Cowboys, Eagles, tough schedule this year. You obviously losing A.J. Brown. Derrick Henry probably gonna be nicked up again this year. So all the pressure on Ryan Tannehill. Yeah, all those optics tell you that Tennessee Titans are not gonna be as good this year. In fact, I think they'll be under 500 most likely. Sorry, I need to get a drink. So that's what picks are there. Again, Baltimore minus 7.5, Denver minus 6.5, Miami minus 3, the under on Carolina and Cleveland, and the Giants plus 5.5. Going home on that one, guys. Go home on that one. So, college football talk real quick. Florida State Seminoles, mainly. I told you guys coming to the year that wasn't fired up by the Noles. I'm a Noles fan in football, college football. But they're 2-0 now. I mean, obviously the first win against Duquesne, expected, of course. But they beat LSU last week. Got scared at the end, of course. You saw the end of that game, last 5 minutes of the game. It obviously was insane. But I got to tell you look, aside from those 5 minutes, of course, the Seminoles look pretty decent this year. Look, I'm not saying they're going to win the ACC. I'm not saying they're going to win the division. But also the ACC is not that good, so obviously nothing could surprise me. But I like what I saw this week against a quality opponent. If they win 8 games this year, I'm happy. 8 wins. They already got 2 now. The schedule's so fairly easy. At least through September. They get an off week this week. They play Louisville, I think, and a couple other winnable games. And before October comes around, and they got to play Clemson and Wake Forest and Miami, of course, and then it gets toughy. But these quote unquote easier games on the front end, padding up some wins early, padding up some wins late. They win 8 games this year, I'd be happy. I think Jordan Travis at quarterback is actually pretty decent. I like what I saw this past Sunday rather. So I think I don't know. I'm feeling good about the team this year. Like I said, I'm not getting ahead of myself. Obviously, you got to play the games, all that. But I like what I saw this week at LSU, and hopefully they continue to play well and just show more composure as it comes. If they win this next week or two, they probably maybe crack top 25. Who knows? Had they ran away with that game against LSU, maybe they would have cracked it already, like Florida did. But is what it is. And college football in general, like I said, the only thing we learned this week, obviously, was I spoke about this on the Football's Awesome episode. Obviously, Alabama's fantastic. But, who they played? Some cheesy school. Georgia's going to be a problem still. They destroy Oregon. And I think, again, the Notre Dame loss to Ohio State was not a big deal. They only dropped a couple spots in the AP poll. If Notre Dame runs the table, they'd be in the mix. So that's really the only takeaways from week 1 in college football. Should be a fascinating season in college football in general. But like I said, check out the Football's Awesome episodes every week, and we'll dive more into that with the guys on there. A little NBA talk here. One of the things I didn't get a chance to talk about last week on the last solo podcast rather, was Donovan Mitchell trade that happened last week. He is now a member of the Cleveland Cavaliers. The blow up in Utah is complete. Give a lot of pieces though to get him. And I guess my focus on this is more so here is, where does Donovan Mitchell, who I believe is still a top 20 player, but probably closer to 20 than 10. I thought he had a little bit of regression last year. I like Donovan Mitchell. I still think that we might have seen the best of him, and maybe, depending on where he plays, could be where you get the most value out of him. Cleveland last year was a play-in team. They actually had a winning record. They actually had a good year last year. In fact, had it not melted down late in April, they might have actually made the playoffs and not have to go to play the play-in game. But that being said, with the East being what it is now, the big question for me is does Donovan Mitchell going to Cleveland to move the needle in the East? The Cavs have a really nice young roster, and to me, you look at the East now. Obviously, Kevin Durant now we've heard now he's staying in Brooklyn. They're committed to Brooklyn now with Kyrie for another year, at least another year. Ben Simmons should be back. I'm assuming. I don't know. So you look at the Eastern Conference. Who are your lock teams in that playoff mix? Obviously, the Celtics, the defending Eastern Conference champions. Obviously, the Bucks, who I believe will bounce back in a big way with healthy Chris Middleton this time. The Heat, yes, they might take a little step back this year because they're number 1 seed last year. Didn't get much worse. They lost PJ Tucker, but they should be in the mix still. Philadelphia, re-upping James Harden. We'll see if Harden can bounce back. Having a full season with Embiid and company. You can't count out Brooklyn. You can't count out Brooklyn because with Kevin Durant, with Kyrie and Ben Simmons, if they could put the drama away, they're a problem. But again, that's the only thing on the court. There's no question these guys are going to be a problem, and they also low key rebuilt their the roster. Like they low key had a pretty good free agency, considering that they were trying to get rid of Kevin Durant and Kyrie Irving at the time, or at least that was a talk at the time. And they now have some good pieces there around those guys if they can figure it out. And then Atlanta's another team I worry about too. Also in the East now, adding Jonte Murray and whatnot with Trae Young, and still having a relatively decent roster. Obviously, they had a down year last year, but I think that they should be back in the mix again this year. So those are the teams that Cleveland has. If you're looking at Cleveland as a team that could crack the top 6, those are the 6 teams you got to look at. Okay, well, is the Cavs better than in those teams? The only team I can see right now on paper that the Cavs can probably take out of there is probably the Hawks. And even then, I'm not even sure that's going to happen. We'll see. It could happen. I don't know. But the East to me is much better now than it has been in a long time. It was good last year too, especially. I mean, I think Mitchell does move the needle a little bit for the Cavaliers, but we'll see if it's enough to have them crack the top 6 in the East. That's the question. And they had them almost last year too. They were close to doing it, and then they faded late in the year. But we'll see if it happens. But basketball's still a month and a half away. I missed it, but football's back now, so I'll be okay for the time being. All right, some baseball talk here. The NL East down to the wire. As of recording, the Mets are only a half game ahead of the Atlanta Braves. And I warned all my Mets friends and faithful out there all this talk September after they beat the Dodgers. 2 out of 3 of this Dodgers last week. This whole talk of, so we have the easiest schedule in baseball going forward. And I told you guys, who gives a shit? That doesn't mean anything to me. Because one of the things you guys need to understand, and I'm going to say it again, and I said it with regards to basketball, I said it in regards to football especially too, any sport for that matter, that the one thing that is scary about bad teams is when you're playing out to the last month of the year, bad teams become difficult to beat because these guys are now playing for jobs next year. So forget the fact they're playing for position in playoffs or not. They're playing for the right to be able to make a team or a team next year. So you'll start having guys out of nowhere having all these great games here just to show out to have jobs next year. So this idea that it's so easy now because schedule, play the Nationals, they're the worst team in the National League, it should be easy schedule, and then they beat you 2 out of 3. You know what I'm saying? I've never believed in that whole strength schedule thing because, especially when it comes to the last month of the year, I've seen it too many times. Bad teams become dangerous at the end of seasons because they're playing for jobs, playing for their livelihoods. That's what gets scary. So I never believed in that. And you saw, now granted, the Mets doubleheader yesterday, great job. Atlanta's a problem. And and it's funny. I was telling a friend of mine yesterday that I would not be mad at all if Atlanta went to the World Series this year because as long as the Dodgers don't go, I'm happy. I hate the Dodgers. You guys know that already. But this is a battle. The Braves I'll say it again, outside the hiccup they had back in late July, early August, whatever that 5-game set was against the Braves, where the Mets took 4 out of 5 and had at one point a 7-game lead. The Braves have not slowed down at all, outside that hiccup. And to me, it's a good thing for the Mets also, too, because it keeps them focused. It keeps them in, quote-unquote, playoff mode. But these Braves are a problem. And this is still a toss-up. And now you got Max Scherzer, who's out now. If I'm the Mets, I keep him out till playoff time. The Mets are going to be a playoff team. But the Mets also need to avoid the wild card because if they got to play the wild card 3-game set, it's going to screw the rotation. So they need to, and given the fact that DeGrom and Scherzer have their injury issues too, they can't afford to have that become a problem. Or reality, should that matter. They need to have as less baseball gets ahead of them as possible. Because, again, if they got to play wild card weekend, it screws the rotation up. So, but the East down the wire, man. It's as a baseball fan, it's fun. As a Met fan, it's nail biting for me. It's stressful because I really want the best team to win this World Series this year. I think they have a good chance to make some noise in the playoffs. They got to get done, and those bats the bats have got to wake up. I know I did last night. In the second game of the doubleheader against the Pirates. Jacob DeGrom. I always say DeGrom and Scherzer only needs like 4 runs a game to work with. I mean, you gave Jacob 10 runs, which is fine, but so anyway, what I've been watching lately, I'm still on my watching the Legacy Lakers documentary on Hulu. Guys, if you haven't seen it, please check it out. It's fantastic. I'm having a great time watching that show. I just watched episode 5 last night. It drops every Monday for the record. Episode 4 focused on the end of the Pat Riley era in 1990. The Lakers had the best record basketball in 1990, but the team melted down against Phoenix in the playoffs, and Riley and the Lakers, parted ways. Obviously, it gets to Mary Johnson announced he has HIV after they go to the finals in 91 against the Bulls. Pretty much at the end of Showtime, it goes into that. Then episode 5 goes into the Nick Van Exel era, the post Magic era. Oh, by the way, episode 4, I was not aware. I did not know this, but Jerry Buss, of the owner of Lakers, of course, which is all surrounded around him, of course. Tried to buy the Dallas Cowboys, but ultimately the governors, whatever the owners, the owners said no because of his lifestyle, because he was a quote unquote playboy, whatever. Episode 5 focused on the Lake Show, which, by the way, I had no idea the Lake Show thing actually started in the mid '90s, not in the 2000s. I thought the Lake Show thing started around the Kobe Shaq era. I was wrong. It was actually started by the Nick Van Exel era. By the way, some really fun teams though. By the way, back then. Posted on the Lake Show, Nick Van Exel, Magic Johnson comes back as a player, then as a coach, which that went to shit. Also, this episode ends with the start of the Shaq and Kobe era, where they detail how they got Kobe Bryant in the draft, but needed to find a way to trade Vlade Divac to get Shaq, to afford Shaq rather. It's a free agent that year, because Shaq was a lot of money, obviously, back then anyway, and to see the contract then versus now is crazy. But yeah, it ends there with Shaq signing with the Lakers. So obviously episode 7 is probably episode 6 rather is probably going to focusing on the start of Kobe Shaq era, and probably going into the early years probably before they win the titles. So yeah, great documentary, man. I'm having a great time watching it. It's must watch TV. Again, Hulu every Monday. They're now 5 episodes in to this thing. Oh, also another thing too I saw, I didn't realize as well, that Jeannie Buss posed a Playboy. I didn't know that. See, back then when all these things happened, I didn't care about the off-court stuff. I was 14 years old. I didn't care. I mean, I didn't have the access back then, to know these things, compared to now with social media. But Jeannie Buss posed with Playboy. By the way, she's still gorgeous. She's what, 60 now? She's still beautiful. So, all right, some wrestling talk before we get out of here. Lots of AEW backstage drama, man. Holy shit! This came off the pay-per-view this past weekend, All Out. Didn't watch it, by the way, for the record. Tony Khan strips the titles of both CM Punk, who beat Jon Moxley on Sunday. Which I don't get it. They had a match on 2 weeks prior to that on Dynamite to pop a rating, obviously. Punk loses in less than 5 minutes. Punk wins on 2 weeks later, and then they strip the title of Punk. Also, the trios title won by the Young Bucks and Kenny Omega, stripped off by Tony Khan. Tony Khan all of a sudden decided to grow some balls, grow a big penis all out of nowhere. I mean, I like it. Lots of infighting, apparently, allegedly. We're not sure if it's a work or a shoot between CM Punk and the Bucks and Kenny Omega and all that. And there's a lot of stuff coming out of the dirt sheets. I guess the big issue is this. Is this real or not? I will say, for the record, AEW coming out of the weekend is owning the headlines. Probably for the wrong reasons, but unless it's a shoot, unless it's actually real or a fake, I guess. I don't know. We don't know. What we do know is CM Punk has always had drama around him, going back to his WWE years. Obviously, how the way he left the company in 2014, how that worked out. Is that a good look at 1 year in? I know we're going to touch on that on the Taste the Wrestling podcast tonight. We record it about Punk's legacy, because last episode we did on that show. I know Mike and Jim both actually had 2 major rants. We were previewing the All Out card last week, and I know those 2 guys went in on CM Punk, on Phil from Chicago. We call him because he's from Chicago. His real name is Phil. Phil Brooks. And both guys went in heavy on on CM Punk. And there's obviously a pattern here. Now, again, this is also if we believe that what we see here and what we're hearing, or what we've been hearing for the last couple of days, whatever, is true. Lots of drama. As you know, also to their TV deal, and I spoke about this on the podcast with Edu Bennett last week. We had a major discussion about that. But the TV deal is up next year. They have an option to a 1-year option in 2024. He thinks it's over. They're gonna the Warner's gonna cut bait. Some others think differently. I don't know. What I do know is that they are contracted to three hours of content time a week. They have 2 hours for Dynamite on Wednesday nights, and they have 1 hour Rampage on Friday nights at 10 o'clock Eastern time. Obviously, Rampage has been a disaster ratings wise. So I've said already too. I already said that the move here is for Tony Khan to make Dynamite 3 hours and just do away with Rampage. Because no one watches anyway. And I know people say, well, aren't you the one that, gives the WWE shit because the Raw is 3 hours and it's too long? Yeah, I am. But here's the thing, though. If you look at the formats of how they do their shows, especially WWE, WWE also has a pay-per-view, or as they say, a premium live event every single month. AEW has one every season. So in AEW's mind, it would actually be justified to having a 3-hour show a week, be the core show, and keep moving. That way you can also have more women's matches too. The things that we criticized AEW for the last 2-3 years. Lack of women's matches, lack of diversity. Now you have that one forum, 3 hours, and you can spread out your storylines a little more. Rampage is it's a bad time slot for starters. Let's start there. It's a bad time slot. Okay, you're coming on 10 o'clock at nighttime Friday night. Most people in that age group are probably out partying and doing their own thing, and a lot of people are not watching TV at 10 o'clock at night unless you're like over 50 years old. I mean, I haven't watched Rampage in almost a year. Not because I don't want to, because I don't have time. I don't have time for that. So I think the move here is for AEW to just consolidate Rampage into that last hour into a 3-hour Dynamite. I believe you can still hold 900,000 to a million viewers at 10 o'clock for Dynamite. Make Dynamite an event. Make it a weekly event, and then you have the one pay-per-view, each season. Revolution and Double or Nothing and All Out, and then Full Gear. It makes sense. It makes more sense for me personally, but who knows? Like I said, I'm still rooting for AEW because I've said it before. I've said that I've been getting a little weary on AEW these days. Tony Khan and the way he operates and the things he says on social media and whatnot. It shouldn't bother me as much as it does, but it just does because it's bad. It's a bad look. Lack of self awareness, things he says and things he does. But I am rooting for AEW because I want those people to have jobs. It helps rising ships here. AEW is a major promotion now. They're on TV. They have pay-per-views and all that. So they are a major promotion, and I want them to succeed. But I also don't want them to, I also want them to fix the things they're doing as well too. So, like I said, 3-hour Dynamite is a way to go, in my opinion. Let go Rampage, and I'm rooting for them, of course, too. We also heard some report that Malachi Black, who was just actually signed a year ago, actually was there the night he debuted on AEW television in person. He requested release. Supposedly, though, it's more to do let's do AEW, more to do with this him needing a break from wrestling in general. A lot of stuff. What we're hearing, he has personal things going on. I don't know. So, but AEW has a lot of work to do. AEW has a lot to do. For the record, MJF is back too, especially. There's some good storylines going here too. There's some good things on TV going for this company. So they need to lean into that. But if the stuff we're hearing backstage is real, they need to clean it up too. So, and last thing, wrestling related sort of, Pat McAfee, who is obviously the color commentator rather on SmackDown, is announcing he's taking a break from WWE for a little while, because he is now committing to doing College Game Day on ESPN for the next couple months. this dude is busy as hell. I'm sad about it because I will say I have not really watched SmackDown much in the last couple months, but he'd be one of the reasons why I do watch SmackDown. He's great. Here's where I think it's a good thing for McAfee to do this in terms of the WWE, if he's going to commit long term, of course. Is that we people always tend to we like guys and then we get tired of people. So McAfee taking a break, actually, this is saying that it's saying that the absence makes the heart grow fonder. I think McAfee being gone from WWE television for a couple months, people are going to miss him. And then when college football's over, he comes back around Royal Rumble season, and we're going to love him again. That's it. So I don't think it's a bad thing necessarily. I mean, I'm going to miss the guy, obviously, but I think him being away for a couple months, nice little refresh, restart. Throw in Corey Graves there for a couple months, which is fine. And then he comes back in January, whatever it may be, and then things are normal again. So, but Pat McAfee's a busy guy, man. He's doing his show every Monday, Friday from 12 to 3, his regular podcast. He's doing WWE, he's doing College Game Day, he's doing other things. Busy guy. But hey, is a market to it? Money to be made? I'm cool with it. And that will do it for this podcast. Of course, dated September 8th, 2022. I'm actually planning recording a bonus podcast tonight. I'm going to drop tomorrow. My brother, after 10 years, is going to come on the show. He was on the show one time, 10 years ago, like 10 summers ago. We're going to talk New York Giants. We're going to go through the schedule and prognosticate how much wins they have to get. He said he didn't want to do it because the Giants stress him out. I think he surpassed me now as the bigger Giant fan between the two, because he takes that shit like even more serious than I do. And the funny thing is that he has a family too. He has a wife and kids, but he seems to take the Giants a lot more serious than I probably do. I think I've come to terms with, not my fanhood of the Giants, but more so just the fact that they just suck. They suck, and they're rebuilding. And I have realistic expectations for this team going forward. So, and I'll do it for me. Until next podcast. Of course, this one, subscribe to the Unfiltered Podcast. If you like pro wrestling, especially check out the Take 3 Wrestling Podcast. Until then, we'll talk soon. Later.